Soccer is not my thing. I've never really been into feet when it comes to sports. That didn't come out right. But throwing or using your hands for a sport has always been more interesting to me, probably because I am at least competent enough to throw a football. I've always been up for new experiences when it comes to anime, and I've never wanted to limit myself to just one genre. Or maybe that's an excuse to not sound like a creep for wanting to watch magical girl shoujo anime. So despite my dislike and extreme incompetence of soccer, I decided to watch Blue Lock. Initially, Blue Lock wasn't my favorite, and it was a little hard to get into, but as I caught up to where it is currently airing, episode 15 has aired at the recording of this video, I found myself legitimately enthralled by the concept and writing that went into this story. This is a good sports anime, although it has some faults. To start out, the concept is really cool. Unlike most sports anime that focus on teamwork and figuring out their relationships so they can get better together and win games, Blue Lock is focused on one goal. I'm not going to make a pun here. Getting the single best striker in Japan for the national Japanese team and eventually win a World Cup. Basing the entire story premise on real-world sporting events like this makes a weird paradox for the immersion of the story. If Japan wins the World Cup, Blue Lock is completely obsolete, but if Japan doesn't win, then Blue Lock didn't work. Spoilers for the biggest sport tournament in the world, but Japan didn't win the World Cup. They did do better than expected, I guess, so maybe Blue Lock did something. Again, I know nothing about soccer. I do know some things about storytelling though, and Blue Lock has a really interesting way of making this sports anime a battle royale death game action show. If you take the soccer matches and change them to fights or any kind of death game style situation, you'll get a very similar story. There's even room for characters to die, as if you fail enough, you get kicked out of Blue Lock with no hope to return. These stakes are beyond just a team winning or a certain player achieving his dreams. Within the story, there's a threat that some of these players are leaving the story for good, and that adds some extra tension that really helps for people like me who don't really care about soccer. The first major arc is pretty classic team building sports anime stuff with a few twists, but after that, the death game style of the show really shines through with unique challenges that each player has to individually overcome while also making them play as a team. It balances both individual skill and teamwork in a way that feels realistic for getting the best out of each player and getting them to professional levels of play. The concepts are really cool, and the plot is good, although I would say a bit predictable at times. I could generally tell when they were going to win or lose a while before the matches actually ended, but it still led to interesting situations for the characters. That leads to the characters. They aren't always great. This is a very anime thing that I don't like about anime. Everyone has to have these one quirks that define their entire personality, and it just makes everyone really bland, with a few exceptions. Isagi, our main character, is pretty good. He feels like a realistic underdog, like an above average player that isn't amazing at anything. We get to watch him grow, and it feels very rewarding as he learns to hone his skills. And characters like Bachira really grow on you as the story progresses. Like, mostly Bachira. How can you not like this guy? I mean, look at this. Ooh! He is quirky, but in a way that feels like he is a real person. And then there's, this guy is angry all the time. This guy is weak and scared. This guy is super weird and never shows any emotion. And these ones aren't even that bad compared to some of the antagonists. This guy is terrified of everything, but he's actually one of the top players in Blue Lock. This guy says glam and glamorous all the time, and that's his entire personality. It's just so lame that these basic boring tropes are used so often when there could be some really interesting characters. Some definitely feel like real people, and some even grow from what seems like a simple trope into a much more interesting fleshed out person. But the over-the-top, I have one quirk that defines my entire existence characters definitely bog down the show sometimes. Circling back to what I said about the matches being like battles and my dislike for soccer, the whole show doesn't work if the games themselves aren't interesting. And Blue Lock does a really good job of making compelling matches that are easy to get invested in. Because they explain how each tournament works, the stakes are very easy to understand. Usually, win and progress, lose, and you have a lot to make up for, or even face leaving Blue Lock altogether. From there, it can add the strategies and mid-game character growth that generally makes anime sports matches interesting to watch. One thing I wish it did better during the matches was showing more of where every player was. There are a lot of teleporting player moments, where someone just happens to be at a certain place at a certain time, and there's no real explanation for it. Like, just knowing they're in the general area and making it clear it is physically possible for them to be there to block that shot or steal that pass would make a lot of moments feel more gratifying. There's just too many, yes, my way is clear, my plan worked perfectly. Nani? Where did you come from? I get it's from Isagi's perspective most of the time, and he didn't see them, but it would be cool for the audience to know. Nevertheless, the soccer matches are legitimately interesting and fun to watch. Its pacing, in the matches and in general story, is really good. It never feels like it's dragging things out for needless tension or to pad runtime. Overall, it's pretty fast-paced for a sports anime, and I think that's one of its biggest strengths. In conclusion, I might not like soccer, and I might not always like the characters, but Blue Lock fixed the weakest part of sports anime with a really interesting plot and concept. I love it when shows merge genres to create something unique, and Blue Lock is a psychological death game anime wrapped in an athletic bow. The love of soccer, especially at the highest level, is embedded into the story, but you don't necessarily need to have that love yourself to enjoy a lot this anime has to offer. Although, I don't know what you would need to enjoy glam. Please subscribe. I've just about met the requirements for getting monetized, except subscribers, so I'd really appreciate you clicking, or more likely touching, that icon so I can achieve that goal. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know in the comments what you thought of the video. It's a lot different than what I normally make, so I'd like to know what you prefer. Likes also help me figure out what to make next. That's all from me. Check out one of my other videos on the end screen. Jamyao.